Welcome back. The Taliban has declared war in Afghanistan after taking the capital, Kabul. Fighters have seized the presidential palace, sending the president fleeing. Thousands of people have resorted to camp in Kabul's airport and are trying to leave the country as they fear for their lives. Let's get some analysis with Na'eem Jeenah from the Afro-Middle East Centre on what's happening in Afghanistan. Thank you so much for making time, Na'eem. Let's start with the reaction of countries to what's transpired in Kabul. The last I checked, more than 60 countries issued a joint statement calling for security and civil order to be immediately restored. You had the U.S. Security Council that was also going to meet. Where are things standing now in terms of international response?
Well, that UN Security Council meeting is happening as we speak. And those are the kinds of calls that have been made about security, about women, about allowing people who want to leave, etc. At the moment, I mean, the Taliban is in control of the country, of the whole country, including the capital. They haven't formed a government officially yet. However, it seems at the moment, anyway, that all of those things they are being asked to do at the United Nations, they are already doing or allowing to be done. So they're not preventing people from leaving. They have encouraged this morning girls to attend school. They've issued a guarantee, for whatever it's worth, that minorities will not be attacked, etc., etc. It seems from where I'm sitting that the position of the Taliban or the strategy of the Taliban is that they will accede to those kinds of demands or requests from the international community in order to become acceptable.
Yeah. Was it a surprise, though, Na'eem, the accelerated advance of the Taliban? Or was it expected that as the U.S. and other foreign troops withdrew in line with President Joe Biden's desire to end the U.S.'s longest war, that, that was going to advance the Islamist militants?
It was expected that they're going to start taking over parts of the country. It was expected that it would be a war between them and the Afghan army. And many of us expected that ultimately they will take over the entire country, including Kabul, with the exception of some pockets, particularly in the north, where resistance to the Taliban might remain. Those predictions proved false. They took over the entire country, swept in from the north. And in fact, there wasn't a great war. In 9 days, they took over 33 provincial capitals. On the 10th day, they marched into the national capital without a fight. So what was greatly surprising was, one, the rapidity by which they took over the country. Secondly, that there was no resistance, especially in the north, but no resistance in general against them.
Which then raises the question of what work, solid work, I should say, the U.S. were able to do. I mean, America is being criticized for the decision to withdraw. Did that decision undo the 20 years of supposed work and sacrifice, paving the way for a humanitarian catastrophe? Because now the credibility of the U.S. is being questioned. Was the U.S.'s 20-year mission a success? And if really something was built in the last 20 years, how is it then that it's destroyed in just a number of days?
Well, that's the thing. They spent $2 trillion over the past 20 years in Afghanistan, supposedly to set up a government and set up a democracy, which really has been farcical, to set up a police force and an army that would be able to defend the country, and particularly defend the country against what the U.S. called terrorism. None of that seemed to have worked out. All of that training of the army went to naught. And so one questions whether the training was actually worth anything. And all of those weapons that they left behind have now, fallen into the hands of the Taliban, which has now has more weapons than many other countries, including, for example, the Army of Australia. So really, the U.S. going in was a mistake. The U.S. staying for 20 years was a mistake. And the way in which the U.S. left was a mistake. It was a 20-year mistake.
Yeah. I mean, there are implications, obviously, to the Islamist militants returning to power. What are those implications? The Taliban says there won't be revenge on anyone. but you've got ministers and other citizens trying to flee. The leaders say that they want education for their sons and daughters, but when you look at their reign, you know, they ruled the country 1996 to 2001. They had these strict interpretations of Islamic law. Women could not work. You know, girls were not allowed to attend school, and women had to cover their faces and be accompanied by a male relative if they wanted to venture out of their homes. There were public executions, you know, people were stoned. So what does this mean for the Afghan people, them returning to power? And what do you make of these optics as well? I saw a picture earlier today that they uploaded of young girls going to school, again trying to say, you see, we are going to allow some of the rights of the Afghan people to be recognized and respected.
So they've been trying very hard since the negotiations in Doha with the Americans. They've been trying very hard to cultivate a new image for themselves and to present themselves as a new Taliban. A Taliban that accepts modern technology, so they use the internet, they go on TV, etc., that will promote women's education. And so UNICEF reported this morning, as you're saying, that girls were encouraged to go to school, that won't persecute minorities. So they met with the Shia Hazaras, and a delegation from there visited them in Kabul to say that they will be okay, who won't undertake revenge attacks against the former government and commanders, and they've tried to do that. So, you know, all of the promises they made in the past 24 hours, they seem to be sticking to them. We wait to see whether they will stick to that in the long term. Of course, for Afghans who have a memory of that period from 1996 to 2001, I think many of them don't want to stick around to find out whether it will work out or not. But the Taliban's objective is to become acceptable as a legitimate government and hopefully then attract all of those people who leave back into the country.
Thank you for helping us with that analysis. Na'eem Jeenah from the Afro-Middle East Centre, helping us.